Hello everybody, this is Bradley from Politics UK. We are just a couple of days away from not only the English local elections, but also, and what we'll be focusing on today, the Senedd elections in Wales and the Holyrood elections in Scotland. And today we have had two major polls, two MRP projections out from Moreincommon that give a breakdown on the vote share, where each party will be picking up seats, and how many seats they will be picking up, who will be forming the governments in each of these devolved nations. Let's take a look and start off with Scotland. So for context, Scotland has two types of seat. You have the constituency seat, which we're seeing a map of here. This uses a first past the post system. And we have a regional list breakdown, which is more of a proportional representation system. So starting off, we only have 5 parties winning any seats in the constituency side. We have the Green Party deemed here to pick up one of the Glasgow seats, Lib Dems as ever picking up Shetland, and the Conservatives being strong around the borders, Reform picking up 1 or 2 seats here or there, while being a close second in quite a few other seats as well. So on the regional list side, we have Reform picking up 20 of their 22 seats from the regional list. We have the Conservatives and the Green Party tied on, I believe that is 9 seats, and then the Lib Dems on 5. With Labour, to their credit, still just holding an edge, picking up 13 in the region. But what is the vote share breakdown that has given us these seat totals? Now this is actually really interesting. So the SNP are recovering slightly from the last Moreincommon MRP that was held. They're up to 35% on the constituency vote share, with Reform pulling out a now much more clear gap to Labour in second place and third place respectively. Really interesting picture though is this regional list. So for context, the Green Party are not standing in many constituencies. So while it says 2% here, they're only standing in, let's say, 2 or 3, which means actually their vote share in those constituencies where they do stand is probably going to be about 20-30%. So just a bit of context on why the Greens are so weak in constituency is because they're not standing in many constituencies, while in the regional list they're doing a lot more strongly. But the really interesting thing is on this regional list, you have only 4 points now separating the SNP and Reform. And now I personally don't think it will be that close on the night. This is still very interesting. And I think by a margin, since Labour have sort of had their claps when they were competing with the SNP before they came into government, I think this is the closest we've seen any party poll to the SNP. So putting out a clear 7-point gap between Reform and Labour on the regional list is absolutely insane numbers, to be honest, from Reform. They'll be looking at this and be incredibly happy if it's anything like this on the night. I think that's a threshold really for Reform. If they're at 20% on the night in either the constituency or regional list, they will be incredibly happy. But what does this give us a breakdown in terms of seats? Well, you have the SNP 5 seats short of a majority, down 4 seats from the 2021 elections. You have the Conservatives and Liberal Democrats tied in 4th place, with the Tories falling from 31 to 12 seats. Greens up from 8 to 10, Lib Dems also on 12, Labour sitting just ahead of them on 13. This would be a disastrous showing for Labour, actually. And I'm not entirely sure. Okay, sure, on these numbers that Moreincommon have recorded, that might be the case, but I don't think Labour will be as close to the 4th place party as we see here. I think there'll be 3, 4, 5 seats in it maybe. So what kind of government would we see here? It would be a pro-independence government from the SNP and the Green Party, as those 10 MSPs for the Greens would take the SNP above those 65 seats needed for a majority. But with that covered, let's take a look at what I think is the more interesting race in Wales. Guys, if you are new around here, please do give us a follow on X and subscribe here on YouTube for all of the latest UK political news. So I'm starting off with the 2021 result because I feel like this is going to help tell a big story. So in 2021, using a different voting system, it must be said, Labour picked up half of the seats, Plaid on 13, Lib Dems on 1, and the Tories on 16, being the second biggest party. So let's take a look at what the map looks like today. There's some very different colours going on here. So Reform actually lead in the most constituencies. I think it's about 2 constituencies ahead of Plaid, which gives them a couple of extra seats relative to their vote share. Coming first in Wales definitely does still matter, and it will help you pick up that all-important 6th seat. So if you don't know how this works, so the country is broken down into constituencies, but each of these constituencies now have their own form of proportional representation, with 6 seats being awarded for each constituency. They also all have Welsh names, so I apologise, I will, out of respect for all Welsh people, not be trying to pronounce these. So if we look in the northeast, we have Reform just about leading with 2 seats being returned on 27% of the vote. Plaid only on 20, pick up 1 seat. Green Party sitting at about 12% here, and that is the magic number, 12%. Let's just take a look here. Here you go. Conservatives around 11%. Again, Conservative 12%. I'm trying to see Greens. They'll be around, 11%. So that 11 to 12% is how you pick up that 6th seat. Here you go. Greens 11.5%. So where do we sit in terms of vote share? You actually do have Plaid 3 points ahead of Reform. Moreincommon were one of the outliers, actually, that had Labour still polling around the sort of low 20%. They've now slipped back 5 points to 16%, with Reform and Plaid gaining off the back of that. Green Party arguably doing quite weak in Wales for probably where they should be, but I think that's because there is another left-wing alternative in Plaid who are relatively fresh and sort of saying the same things. Although, you definitely sort of say the Green Party are more radical on quite a few points. So Lib Dems being on 4% do not pick up any of the seats, as you'd somewhat expect, because they're not going to hit 11, 12% in any of the constituencies. So this is an example of where the system maybe falls apart. Green Party do get sort of their fair share of seats, to be honest, at 9%. They're going to have stronger regions than others, which means they can pick up a few 5th and 6th place seats. Conservatives, I'd make an argument after seeing how well squeezed their vote was in Caerphilly, which again is using a first past the post system, so you'd expect more of a squeeze. But if they can sit around 12%, I think that's pretty healthy for them, to be brutally honest. I thought they'd probably end up in the high single digits, probably 8-9%. So 12 would be a pretty good return for the Tories. Obviously, because they're at that magic 12% threshold, they'll actually pick up quite a few seats, again in 5th or 6th place. But really, of course, the 2 biggest stories, Reform and Plaid. So let's take a look at how these seats break down. The big headline from this MRP is that Plaid and Labour, which is 100% going to be the government coming out of this, you can say, no matter how the night goes, Plaid and Labour in a month's time will be governing Wales in some capacity together. So as a Labour Party, what do you do? Do you support Plaid and say we're getting this progressive image of what we have for Wales through, and then, try to argue on some of the differences with Plaid ahead of the next election to try to remain relevant? Like, really, that is the big question for Labour, is just how do they remain relevant? And I know that sounds really mean, but let's take a look at the vote share compared to sort of historic levels. So since devolution, they have never polled lower than 29.6%. They're currently projected to poll at 16%. So since 1918, they got 21.3% of the vote. They have never fallen below that figure, but they are about to, and it is a big drop as well. So again, I go back to the question, how do Labour remain relevant and try to get that figure to jump back up? I'll be honest, I think this projection is really strong for the right bloc. I don't think it will end up like this come the actual election, because I don't think the Conservatives will hold at about 12%. I think they're more likely to be 9-10%, which means they're probably going to lose 3 or 4 of these seats. And I know that sounds like a small number, but that really does make the difference when you're thinking most likely is Plaid, Labour and Reform to pick up those seats. I don't think the right bloc will be as strong as this, but Reform will definitely be the second place party, potentially the biggest party in vote share and seats. However, they definitely will not be able to form a government that has a majority. It just will not happen, because the Lib Dems definitely won't work with them and might not pick up any seats. The Greens won't work with them. Labour almost definitely won't, and Plaid definitely won't as well. So there's just no scope really for Reform leading Wales coming out the back of these elections, unless they're able to try to run some kind of minority government. I think that's their game plan if they do happen to win. They're going to come out straight away and say, we're a minority government, we're going to try to run Wales, we're going to do all of this stuff, but then it all gets rejected, their budget gets rejected later this year, and we probably end up with more elections. That's sort of how that goes. Or you end up with Plaid and Labour and the Green Party coming together and going, okay, it's our turn to try to form a government now because the Reform one has collapsed. And without needing a new election, they're able to sort of form that majority. So, but one thing I can tell you as well from people I know within Plaid, they are very much hoping that they only need to govern with one other party. Needing to rely on 2 parties is really adding to the complexity of trying to govern Wales after these elections. So let me know what you expect is going to happen in both Scotland and Wales. What do you think of these numbers? What's something that's really surprised you from this video? I always read through all of the comments, so let me know what you guys think and if you like these formats. But guys, if you are new around here, please do follow us on Politics UK on X, and also give us a subscribe here on YouTube as well, and turn notifications on. Until next time, guys, I'll see you later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.